Chosen one, on August 10th, the question pressing against your spirit is not merely why you lost something, but who took what you were meant to carry. You have felt the ache of watching an opportunity disappear, a relationship change, a door close, or a season pass while you were still trying to understand what happened. Somewhere inside, you have wondered whether your blessing was stolen by another person's decision, by betrayal, by delay, by fear, or by circumstances you could not control. You may have smiled in public while privately asking God why something assigned to your life seemed to end up in someone else's hands. Yet this day is not a promise that heaven has scheduled a guaranteed repayment on a particular date. It is an invitation to recognize what has been lost, what has been distorted, and what God may be teaching you to recover with wisdom rather than revenge. If you sense that your season has meaning, but cannot yet name what it is forming, the call of the chosen. A 30-day journey can help you reflect on the season with greater clarity and spiritual intention. It is designed to help you examine the waiting, understand the inner work, and recognize the next faithful step. Access it through the pinned comment. The pain you carry is not proof that you have been forgotten, and the silence around you is not permission to surrender your discernment. Stay here, because the restoration you need may begin first as a clearer understanding of what truly belongs in your hands. You noticed it in the quiet hours when the room was dark, but your mind remained awake. Your shoulders tightened as you remembered what happened, and your hand reached for the phone before you had even decided what you were looking for. You searched for an explanation, a sign, an apology, or some evidence that the story had not ended the way it appeared to end. During the day, you moved through your responsibilities, answered messages, completed tasks, and continued speaking as though nothing had been taken from you. But the body remembers what the mouth tries to minimize: a shallow breath, a clenched jaw, a heaviness behind the eyes, or an unusual tiredness can reveal how long you have been carrying a question without attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Solution. You are not weak because the loss affected you. You are human, and something important was interrupted. Still, the interruption does not have authority to define the rest of your life. Your grief deserves honesty, but it does not deserve to become your permanent address. The message connected to this date is not an invitation to accuse every person who disappointed you. It is a call to distinguish between what was stolen, what was surrendered under pressure, what was never assigned to you, and what God is asking you to rebuild differently. You may need to recover your courage to begin again, your ability to trust your own discernment, your discipline to protect what matters, or your willingness to receive a blessing without apologizing for it. You may need to recognize that restoration sometimes returns as wisdom before it returns as opportunity. It may come through a healthier boundary, a clearer decision, a renewed capacity to pray, or the strength to stop chasing what continually drains your peace. The purpose is not to make you obsessed with repayment. The purpose is to return you to stewardship. What is placed in your care must be handled with gratitude, patience, and responsibility. What is removed may still teach you, but it no longer gets to command your identity. Imagine the ordinary scene that has followed you through this season. You are standing in the kitchen before the day has fully begun, holding a cup that has already gone cold. The house is quiet, but the question is loud. You remember the promise you thought you understood, the plan you made, or the door you believed would remain open. Then you remember how quickly another person seemed to receive what you had prayed for, and comparison entered the room before you could stop it. Their progress began to look like evidence against you. Their celebration felt like an announcement that your portion had been reassigned. But appearances do not reveal the whole story, and another person's visible outcome cannot measure your unseen formation. You have been tempted to interpret delay as rejection because delay is uncomfortable. Yet some delays expose motives, strengthen judgment, and prevent you from carrying a blessing with an unprepared heart. What felt like theft may also contain a lesson about where you placed your trust. There is a difference between recognizing a pattern and reacting to it. You may notice the same kind of disappointment arriving through different people, different workplaces, or different opportunities. You may feel that every time you get close to something meaningful, confusion rises and your confidence begins to collapse. That awareness matters, but it must be handled with humility. Not every closed door is sabotage, and not every open door is confirmation. Sometimes your attention becomes so focused on who took from you that you cannot see what fear has convinced you to abandon. Sometimes you are waiting for another person to confess, while God is inviting you to stop negotiating with what you already know. You need a way to separate waiting from preparation, closure from redirection, and genuine peace from temporary relief. The Call of the Chosen. A 30-day journey offers a structured way to reflect, pray, and examine these distinctions without turning every silence into abandonment. Readers have used guided reflection to organize their prayers and gain clarity about seasons that once felt confusing. If you need help understanding what this waiting may be forming in you, find it through the pinned comment and begin with the day that meets your present need. Clarity does not erase the history, but it can keep the history from controlling your next decision. Once you understand the difference between loss and release, you can move forward without carrying someone else's shadow into every new opportunity. The first opposition you face may not be a person at all. It may be the pressure to make a decision simply because you are tired of uncertainty. False urgency tells you that if you do not force an answer now, you will lose everything forever. Comparison whispers that someone else's timing is your deadline. Fear urges you to accept the first substitute, reopen the wrong door, explain yourself to people who have already chosen not to understand, or spend your remaining strength proving that you were mistreated. These impulses can feel powerful because they promise immediate relief. Yet relief is not always peace. A hurried reaction can place you back into the same cycle that wounded you. Before you answer, purchase, return, confront, or commit, allow yourself enough quiet to hear what desperation cannot hear. You do not have to deny the injustice you experienced, but you also do not have to let injustice train you to live without wisdom. Consider Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers and carried into a future he did not choose. His story does not make betrayal harmless, and it does not suggest that every loss will be repaid in the same visible form. It shows that the action of others can alter your route without possessing the final authority over your calling. Joseph had to learn skill, patience, restraint, and responsibility in places where he had not planned to live. He could not control the motives of those who harmed him, but he could remain faithful in the room where he found himself. Your ordinary life may not resemble his, yet the principle can meet you in a difficult workplace. a strained family relationship, a delayed plan, or a season where your contribution seems overlooked. You are not asked to pretend that betrayal was good. You are asked to refuse the belief that betrayal makes you useless. The hands that released you may have changed your location, but they did not erase the gifts, lessons, and responsibilities still developing within you. When you ignore the signal beneath the pain, the same cycle can repeat with a new name. You may keep choosing what feels familiar instead of what is healthy. You may accept crumbs because you are afraid that refusing them means you will receive nothing. You may remain available to people who only remember you when they need access to your strength. You may call exhaustion humility, silence peace, and self-abandonment loyalty. Over time, the heart becomes less sensitive to direction because it is busy defending old choices. The cost is not that God withdraws love from you. The cost is that you lose contact with your own honest response. You stop noticing what brings settled conviction and what leaves you divided. You delay obedience because you are waiting for perfect certainty, while the clearer instruction may already be present in the boundary you keep postponing. Restoration begins when you stop treating repeated confusion as a normal price for belonging. The meaning of this August 10th message is not that you should demand repayment from heaven or search for an enemy to blame. It is that the one who took your peace does not have to keep possessing it. The one who mishandled your trust does not have to remain the interpreter of your worth. The one who benefited from your silence does not have to control your voice forever. If something was taken through deception, negligence, manipulation, or your own lack of discernment, you can face the truth without allowing shame to become another thief. Let this be your code of remembrance. Type 810, not as a magical formula, but as a simple mark that you are willing to recognize what happened and respond with wisdom. Then return to the quiet place where you can ask what must be recovered, what must be released, and what must never again be placed in careless hands. The date can serve as a marker of renewed obedience, not as proof that every outcome has already been decided. The deeper conflict is often internal because the external loss activates an older belief. Perhaps you learned that receiving creates danger, that visibility invites criticism, or that success causes people to leave. Perhaps you were praised for being useful, but rarely encouraged to be whole. You became skilled at giving, adapting, forgiving, and waiting, but uncertain about asking whether the arrangement was fair. When something valuable was taken, the event confirmed what you had quietly suspected, that your needs would always come last. That belief can influence your choices long after the original situation has ended. You may sabotage an opportunity before anyone else can reject you. You may refuse help because dependence feels unsafe. You may confuse independence with isolation. Naming this pattern is not an accusation against you. It is a way of bringing hidden agreements into the light, so you can decide whether they still deserve your loyalty. Recognition alone is not enough when the same wound keeps shaping the same decision. You need a practical way to turn insight into prayer, reflection, and a next step that can be lived in an ordinary day. The Call of the Chosen. A 30-day journey can serve as a companion while you examine the difference between fear and direction, delay and preparation, and genuine closure and temporary disappointment. Use it when you need to slow down before answering a message, accepting an offer, reopening a relationship, or abandoning a responsibility. It can help you create a rhythm of reflection instead of making every decision from emotional exhaustion. If you are ready to apply what you are recognizing rather than merely collect another inspiring thought, access it through the pinned comment and let the next faithful step become concrete. You do not need to solve your entire future tonight. You need enough honesty to stop repeating what has already shown you its cost. From that honesty, a steadier form of courage can begin to grow. Your mind may analyze the evidence, your body may react to remembered danger, and your spirit may sense a direction that neither argument fully explains. These layers should not be confused. A bodily reaction can signal that something needs attention, but it does not automatically reveal the meaning of the situation. A thought can be logical and still be shaped by fear. A spiritual impression can feel compelling and still require patience, counsel, and examination. You honor yourself when you allow all three to be heard without letting any one of them become an unquestioned ruler. Breathe slowly enough to notice what changes when urgency decreases. Write down the facts separately from your interpretations. Pray for wisdom without demanding a dramatic sign. Then watch whether the path produces greater honesty, responsibility, and peace over time. Discernment is not a performance of certainty. It is the patient practice of becoming truthful enough to recognize what you are actually being asked to carry. Your relationships also require discernment, especially after you have been hurt. A person who betrayed you may not need to be hated, but neither must that person be given the same access again. Forgiveness can release your heart from revenge, while boundaries protect your life from repeated harm. You can wish someone well without returning to the role in which they misused your trust. You can listen without agreeing, remain kind without becoming available, and leave a conversation without explaining every detail. Healthy discernment does not turn you suspicious of everyone. It teaches you to observe consistency, accountability, and the effect of proximity on your character. Notice who respects your no, who celebrates your growth without competition, and who becomes interested only when your resources are useful. The goal is not to build a fortress around your heart. It is to stop confusing an unlocked door with a commanded welcome. Opposition often works through lesser urgencies. It fills the day with small demands until you have no attention left for the decision that matters most. It keeps you scrolling when you need to sleep, reacting when you need to reflect, and explaining when you need to remain quiet. It sends you back to old conversations, not because they contain new wisdom, but because repetition feels easier than change. Fatigue makes every question appear larger and every boundary feel cruel. Delay then becomes a strategy for keeping you divided. You do not need to defeat every distraction in a single dramatic act. You can remove one source of noise, postpone one unnecessary response, and protect one period of quiet. Your attention is part of your stewardship. Where you repeatedly place it will shape what you can recognize. A life crowded by other people's urgency leaves little room for the quiet conviction that could guide you into restoration. The turning point comes when you stop negotiating with the truth connected to this message. You may not know who will return what was lost, and you may never receive the apology you deserved. You may not see a visible reversal on the date that awakened this reflection. But you can decide that the theft of another person will not become the permanent theft of your identity, your discipline, or your future. You can admit that a door was wrong for you, even if you once begged it to open. You can grieve what happened without building an altar to it. You can acknowledge your part without carrying responsibility for another person's choices. The truth may require you to make a difficult call. Close an account, revise a plan, seek wise counsel, or rest before taking action. Whatever it requires, let it be guided by integrity, rather than the desire to make someone else feel the pain you felt. Restoration begins where self-deception ends. Picture a sealed garden hidden behind an old stone wall. Within it, seeds have rested beneath the soil through seasons of rain, heat, and cold. From the outside, the wall appears to show nothing. Someone passing by might assume the ground is empty, abandoned, or incapable of producing life. Yet beneath the surface, roots have been forming in darkness, protected from careless hands and harsh weather. Let this garden be the only sustained image you carry through the next part of this message. What was hidden was not necessarily dead. What was delayed was not necessarily denied. The wall may represent a boundary, a season of protection, or the distance required for something tender to develop without public pressure. You have been tempted to measure your life by what can be seen from the road. But some of the most important work occurs where applause cannot reach and comparison cannot interfere. Inside that hidden garden, formation happens without announcement. The roots do not become stronger because someone is watching them. They deepen because the soil holds them, because moisture reaches them, and because the seed responds to the conditions available. In the same way, your character may have been developing through small acts no one celebrated. You kept your word when breaking it would have been easier. You continued working without receiving immediate recognition. You prayed while your emotions remained unsettled. You learned to pause before answering, to save before spending, to speak honestly without cruelty, and to leave without creating a scene. These acts may appear ordinary, but they are not empty. They prepare you to hold what you once asked for. If restoration came before that preparation, you might return to the same habits that lost the blessing in the first place. The hidden season is not punishment. It is where capacity is quietly built. The garden also has a wall, because not every hand deserves access to the soil. Some people only notice growth when they can claim it, control it, or benefit from it. Some environments expose tender beginnings to criticism before they have strength enough to withstand it. Some conversations cause you to dig up what needed time. The barrier is not proof that you are superior or that everyone outside is an enemy. It is a practical recognition that growth requires appropriate conditions. You may need to stop presenting every plan before it is ready. You may need to keep certain prayers private until they become decisions. You may need to leave spaces where your vulnerability is repeatedly turned into entertainment or leverage. The wall is not meant to imprison the garden. It is meant to preserve the possibility of fruit. A boundary can be an expression of love for what God is still teaching you to protect. Then beneath the soil, movement begins. A root finds room, a stem presses upward, and a small break appears where the surface once looked unchanged. Nothing about that movement requires the seed to shout. It simply responds to the life within it and the conditions that have finally become sufficient. Your own movement may be quiet at first. You may update a document, make a phone call, decline an invitation, return to a neglected practice, or take one honest step toward a responsibility you have avoided. The world may not recognize it as restoration, yet you will feel the difference because your actions no longer come from panic. You are not trying to prove that the one who took from you was wrong. You are becoming available to what can grow when you stop handing your attention back to the wound. The garden does not recover by arguing with the wall. It recovers by continuing to live. When you recognize the garden in your own story, you understand that hidden does not mean forgotten. The loss may have covered you for a time, but it did not define the substance beneath the surface. Let this be the short phrase you type as a reminder of that recognition. What is mine to steward is growing. Do not treat the phrase as a guarantee or a charm. Let it point your attention toward patience, responsibility, and the quiet evidence of formation already present in your life. Then ask which part of your character needs watering through consistent practice, and which part needs protection through a wise boundary. The answer may not be dramatic, but it can still be decisive. A living garden does not need to compete with every field around it. It needs the right care, the right rhythm, and the courage to keep growing where it has been planted. Restoration is not always a return to the exact arrangement you lost. Sometimes the old arrangement made you dependent on approval, vulnerable to manipulation, or unable to hear your own convictions. Returning to it would restore the appearance of blessing while preserving the conditions that caused the harm. A wiser restoration may bring back your peace without bringing back the person who disturbed it. It may return your confidence without returning you to the place where you had to perform for acceptance. It may restore your purpose through a different route, a smaller beginning, or a responsibility that seems less impressive but is more aligned with your values. Do not measure healing only by whether the original object comes back. Ask what the experience taught you about access, timing, stewardship, and truth. The one who took something from you may have altered your path, but you can still choose the quality of the road ahead. Begin with one concrete practice in a real scene. Before you answer an emotionally charged message, place the phone face down and write 3 sentences: what I know, what I fear, and what I am responsible for today. Do not fill the page with accusations or predictions. Keep the first sentence to observable facts, the second to your internal reaction, and the third to one action that honors your values. This practice creates space between the event and your response. It helps you see whether you are being guided by clarity or by the need to end discomfort quickly. If the message still requires an answer, respond after your body has settled. If it does not, let silence be a deliberate choice rather than an avoidance born of fear. You are teaching yourself that urgency does not own your hands. That lesson may protect the next blessing more effectively than any dramatic declaration. A second practice is to create a small inventory of what was taken and what remains. Name the opportunity that ended, the trust that was damaged, the time that cannot be recovered, and the confidence that became difficult to access. Then name what remains: your capacity to learn, your ability to choose, the people who have shown consistency, the skills you developed, and the values you refuse to abandon. This is not an exercise in pretending that loss is gain. It's a way of preventing loss from becoming the only witness in the room. Read the inventory when comparison tells you that nothing is left. Then choose one remaining resource and place it into action. Use the skill, make the healthy connection, protect the hour, or complete the task. Stewardship becomes convincing when it moves from thought into practice. You may also discover that protection sometimes arrives through limits. A closed door can be mercy when the room would have required you to become smaller. A delayed answer can be mercy when your motives are still tangled with fear. A changed rhythm can be mercy when constant availability has made you resentful and exhausted. Not every limit is an attack on your freedom. Some limits prevent you from giving sacred energy to ordinary demands. You are allowed to stop replying immediately. You are allowed to review an agreement before accepting it. You are allowed to say that a conversation is no longer productive. You are allowed to leave without making your departure dramatic. These choices do not guarantee a painless future, but they make room for a truthful one. The blessing you are asking to recover may require a new container, because the old container leaked every time you tried to fill it. Now name one clear decision that follows from what you have recognized. Perhaps you will no longer chase an explanation from someone committed to misunderstanding you. Perhaps you will return to a discipline that strengthens your work. Perhaps you will protect your sleep, seek wise counsel, revise a financial commitment, or stop offering access where accountability is absent. Keep the decision specific enough to practice and humble enough to evaluate. You do not need to announce it to everyone for it to become real. A decision becomes strong through repetition, not through volume. Let the date remind you of the moment when you stopped asking whether you could force the past to change and began asking how you would steward the future. The person who took from you may remain outside your control, but your next faithful action can return part of your authority to your own hands. If this message has helped you slow down and wreck attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.